Hi, I'm Becca Otis from Five Lines Pottery in Indianapolis, Indiana.
And I'm Ryan Durbin from RD Ceramics, located in Southgate, Kentucky.
And welcome to Wheel Talk.
Hey guys, we've loved answering all of your questions so far. If you'd like to hear your question on the podcast, please send them to us on Instagram at wheeltalkpodcast or by email to wheeltalkpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks. Why did you say that right when we started? Did you start it?
Yeah, I started it. Did you start it?
Yeah, but you said hi Ryan before we even started.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You said 15 seconds. When did you start it?
At 15 seconds.
Okay, but you said hi Ryan at like 10 seconds after. I'm like, are you tricking me?
No, I did not. Our clocks are not the same.
That's not good.
It's fine. I'll figure it out.
All right.
I always do. Did you do it at 15 seconds?
Hi, Becca.
Hi.
I did.
Okay, cool. Then we're fine. Hi, Ryan.
We're good. Hi.
Hi. Ryan, how are you?
I had a moment today where, okay, so I'm doing my taxes,
Yeah.
right? And then they call me today, and they're like, hey, your taxes are ready. We need to schedule time. Whatever. Okay. And then they're like, okay, let's verify your last of your social. And then they start telling me stuff about, like, you owe this, you owe that, you owe this. And I'm like, holy shit. So I owe a bunch of money, and I'm like, I should have known. You do really well, and you don't pay enough estimated taxes, you're going to owe a bunch of money. So that's what kind of got me like, I was like, Rachel, this fucking sucks.
I hate owning a business.
I hate making so much profit that I got to pay all this tax and give it away.
That's why I don't make a lot of money.
Yeah,
Cheers
so that's
to
what
that.
I was chatting with Josh about this and reached out to Kurt a little bit earlier today too and was like, so I'm trying to think of some questions to ask my tax person to help me in the future with, are there some things that I'm not taking advantage of or things that I'm not doing that I should be doing, even though like I'm not paying myself, and are there ways that I can spend money that can help the business move forward that
Oh my God, Ryan!
I'm not
Ryan,
doing.
spend money? What?
I know.
What?
I'm
What
like,
just happened?
I almost need permission to do it.
Maybe this is a blessing in disguise.
Apparently. Well, I did just make a couple of semi-big purchases though.
What?
I bought a new phone.
Oh yes, and that's a business expense.
Yeah. So I got the new iPhone 12 Pro Max. It's like the biggest phone.
We're twinsies now.
Do you have the Max too?
Yeah.
Nice. It's got like 16 cameras and
Yeah.
it's great.
Do you know what's funny is that I ripped off the screen protector of mine, and then I was like, I'm pretty sure I have 2 more because I always buy them in packs of 3. Well, I couldn't find it, so now I I have an 11R, no, a 10R screen protector on my 12 Pro Max, and it's like an inch too small.
It's tiny.
We went to get milkshakes.
I'm sure that looks nice.
Yeah, we went to get milkshakes yesterday, and Mackenzie was like, why is your screen protector so tiny? Okay.
At least you don't have an old one that's got like the thumbprint, like it goes around the
yes.
home button or
That'd
something.
That'd be great. Okay.
You're like, geez, Becca, get a new screen protector. They're not that expensive.
So you owe a bunch of money, and I feel like...
I did learn a couple
Okay,
things.
well, let's hear it.
So one thing that I heard from Josh that was beneficial was meet with your tax person before the end of the year so you know what you can do. If you're like, hey, I'm making a bunch of extra money, like maybe I can spend something in the last 2 months of the year.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And like, that's a good idea. Typically, I wait till the year's over and I send them all the stuff in like April, or not April. I don't usually wait that long. Usually like February or March. And I'm like, okay, here's all the info. But the year's already passed. Like you can't go back to 2020 and spend money. So it's like, yeah. So yeah, that's the main thing I learned, as well as just you gotta do some of that money. You gotta spend it, or you gotta
I've been telling you this for
upgrade
a
some equipment, or
while. You should have bought.
I'm just like, what am I gonna drop all this money on? I don't want to just drop $5,000 on something. Like,
why not buy a brand
maybe I
new
need
fucking
to pay myself
kiln?
that money. And
Oh well, you know what you should be doing is potentially what you need to ask your accountant is, see if you can change your business into an S corp. I believe. I'm not a pro on this.
that's one thing Josh and one thing that Kurt mentioned, but they mainly said do that if you have employees and you're paying people. Like, that's when it would make sense.
I've heard that it makes sense regardless.
But I don't know. So that's something to have a conversation with them between LLC and S corp and all that stuff, that the people that are way smarter than me know what's going on and know the benefits, and
because then if
hopefully
you
they can look at my business historically and
So-
tell me some guidance.
then you can pay yourself a salary. And what that also does is, when you pay yourself a salary, once you are like more established, and then you do decide to quit your job, then you are not like dipping. Like, you have back years of salary, as opposed to like let's say,
You're not dipping.
Like,
So you're saying that you increase your salary to match what you might have
Right.
previously made.
but I mean, like, obviously you're making
business just
profit,
takes
and you
on
can
more.
show that you're making profit and all that stuff. But it's a lot easier to like make a quote unquote salary through your business, instead of like being like a sole proprietor. Because, like, let's say you wanted to buy a house, then you have to like show all these things and do all this stuff, and it's like really complicated if you're a sole proprietor, and they make you like put a lot of money up front and all these things. And I think,
Yeah.
I could be wrong, like I said earlier, I think that if you're paying yourself a salary as like an S corp, or like, you know, that kind of a business, then you're an employee of your business. So then, you know, then you would get like a W-2 just like everybody else, and it wouldn't change, you know. So
Right. Yeah, because right now the way I have it set up, sole proprietor, it's like either it shows as the business making the profit, or I pay myself and it looks like personally I made more additional income. It's like I think they cancel each other out. Like, I don't think it matters to pay myself if I'm a sole proprietor, because it's all in the same.
yeah. I wonder
sheets of,
if
like,
you started like
taxes, so.
paying employees, if that would help with the taxes situation too, or not.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's something to discuss with them too. Yeah, so I think the meeting before the end of the year is definitely a good idea.
Yes.
And I knew that I made a lot of extra profit that, like, my estimated payments weren't going to cover. I just didn't know how much I was going to owe, which I could have done the math. I could have just been like, how much profit? And then, like, you know, do some general math of like 25% or 30% or whatever you can assume that's going to be like taxes or whatever that number is. But and
It's
I can pay ahead
ridiculous.
too. I could pay more than I need, and then that'll go to the next year.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It is ridiculous how much money we give to the government. It's like, be a small business owner.
And it feels like I earned that money,
Yeah.
and I gotta give it away.
Like-
but you didn't pay taxes on it before then, so like you know you're gonna have to pay it.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
but like it just doesn't like I know. I'm not like this has nothing to do with politics or anything like that, but it's just this crazy thing, you know. They're like, be a small business owner. Like, we support small businesses. By the way, you have to pay like 35-40% taxes at the end of the year. It's like, why? Why am I a small business owner? They're encouraging you not to make money. That's what they encourage you to do. They're like, be a shitty small business owner. That
I want to save a big pile of money. All right, we're coming for that pile
Yeah.
because we want our cut.
That's crazy.
You either spend it or we take a chunk. Yeah, so that was my day. The only other thing, I mentioned the big purchase. The other big purchase was I bought some stuff from a local person that was getting rid of a bunch of stuff from a studio.
Oh, yeah.
It was a gentleman that was getting rid of a home studio set up from his father that was in health issues, and he hadn't made it in quite a while. And he had this pottery studio of like 30 years of all these, you know, old school stuff, you know. Had some some wheels in there, had some kilns in there, had some pug mill and slab roller and stuff. So I kind of got the first dibs at it because I was the first person he contacted through Clay Alliance, and I got the email. And then we kind of went that route. So I got I got a used Brent CXC to upgrade my old Speedball Creative Industries Clay Boss
Isn't
wheel.
a CXC better than the one that you're throwing on right now?
Yeah, I have a Brent C, so the CXC. It was a little smoother and it was a little quieter.
Why don't you switch your regular
yeah.
throwing wheel?
I could. I think what I'm going to do is just raise both of them up. Right now it's on the ground because previously I had boxes of clay propping up the Speedball, but the Speedball was a lot lighter than the Brent is. So I'm going to get some cinder blocks at Lowe's probably and prop both of them up and probably get some foot mats to cover both areas. And that typically what I do is I have one wheel with white clay and one wheel with speckled clay. So I don't have to clean them, and I'm not worried about cross-contaminating the clays and stuff. So that's what I'll do. But upgraded that. I got like a cool handmade kind of bat system. It was made out of wood. He like created this little channel to hold these little guides to hold these hexagon tiles that were, basically pretty close to a circle bat,
That's how my first bat system
they fit
was.
Nicely in that.
Like with little pieces around.
Did you make that too? Yeah. Yeah, so it was pretty cool. So I got that as well with, it's got a whole bunch of tiles. So I was like, I can't skip out on that because that's like a great idea. Whether I use all those bats or not with the like tiles, or if I like sell them to somebody as a set, I just feel like I wanted to get it.
Are the tiles bisque?
They're tiles from like making like floor tiles.
They're like glazed though. They're finished.
They're coated, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So that's what I got, and then I sent out the stuff to the Clay Alliance, and he was super proud because he got like 20 people that were interested, and it's just overwhelming. He was taking over this studio, and he's got all this stuff going on, and he's got to. Could you imagine liquidating like everything from a studio that's been lived in for 30 years? It's like there's so much stuff.
I love how you're asking me that, and I literally just did that, like, not for 30 years, but I literally just liquidated an entire studio, like, 4 months ago, and it was fucking terrible.
Yeah. Right. And especially, like, he's the son.
He
like,
had no idea.
He has, I mean, he had some connection to it, but he's trying to clear it out because he's got, a lot of stuff going on. But one thing that was hilarious.
Okay.
So we're cleaning out the stuff, right? He's cleaning out clay and whatnot. He freaking dumps this clay in the toilet in the basement. He is flushing it. Oh my gosh, it was hilarious. But I didn't say anything because I'm like, hey, I'm in your studio. Like, I'm out of here soon. But
Oh my gosh.
He's dumping this stuff down the toilet. Don't ever do that, by the way.
Well, I mean if it's like
God.
once, hopefully it won't matter.
No, it was not once.
Did you tell him? You should have told him.
He's getting rid of everything. What am I going to tell him? He's been doing it for years. What's me telling him at the very last minute gonna do?
That's a good point, I suppose.
And he's out of the game. Like he's the son of the maker. Like he's Oh man, I just couldn't help but laugh inside a little bit at that, but it was like, oh my gosh.
That's funny.
How about you? How's your day and week going?
Well, so yesterday we had a gas leak in the studio, or we found out we had found out we had a gas leak in the studio. If you recall, last week on Wednesday, I got really sick working at the studio. And I was super nauseous and I was super tired, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I can't do the podcast. It also happened on Sunday when I got super sick. Now, these were both like moments where I was there alone with the, usually we had like the garage door open, or something like airflow coming through. So anyway, this leak has probably been going on for at least 2 weeks. And it was like a slow leak, and it was right above my head. So.
Oh my gosh.
So
how did you how did you know that it was happening?
So, okay. I remember smelling something on Monday, just very briefly. And I was like, oh, it's probably the kiln room. And then yesterday, I walk in and I'm like, it smells weird. It kind of smells like gas. And I looked at Abby and I was like, does it smell like gas to you? And she goes, I think it smells like pizza.
Where's the pizza?
Well, 2 people had pizza for lunch. And so, and then I was like, Mackenzie, does it smell like gas to you? And she's like, yeah, it kind of smells like gas. And then we walked over to Bradley, and we were like, Bradley, does it smell like gas to you? And he's like, oh, I thought that was my breath.
Like in his mask or something?
Yeah.
Like breathing in his mask, and he's like, oh man, that's weird.
He was like, I'm so glad that somebody was like, oh no, it does smell weird. So then, and Rebecca was gone. So what had happened was like the garage door was open, and then they closed it and they left to go to like IKEA or something. And then that's when we started like really smelling it. And then we called the gas company, and then we had to leave. This is the second time I've been through this whole situation. Like one time, like a couple of years ago, my heater was leaking carbon monoxide, and I almost died. Yeah. So that's fixed. So that's good.
That is good. Did anybody else get sick? Did you ask anybody
well,
else?
Bradley felt weird yesterday, and so did Abby, but they had both gotten their vaccines, so they were like, oh, I think it's just my vaccine. But I think that it was probably... Because it smelled pretty potent yesterday. It was really faint on Monday, I believe. I've been probably affected by it a little bit too much. So that was fun. What's great is that I woke up and I was like awake this morning, and like, you know, like the past couple of weeks I've been like really tired and really like I just haven't felt good. So anyway, that's why. Yeah, so that happened, and I don't know if there's well, we kind of talked about this last week, but I've been really getting into like art history or pottery history.
Yes, very much.
Very much so. It kind of stems from like appropriation within culture, which I feel like is everybody does it, you know, and it's something that we all do, but like it's kind of this like just I kind of really want to like look into like the Asian influence within pottery and like Japanese versus Chinese versus Korean, and like I'm finding out there's like a whole hell of a lot of appropriation within the Asian community, which is really interesting, and like people stealing things, and yeah, it's been really interesting. And I never thought when I was in college I would actually buy a pottery history book for fun.
Yeah, it's like buying a textbook.
Yeah.
It's like, what? You're gonna read that?
Right. I was like, damn, like this is when I literally bought 4 of them, and I was like, this is what I'm living my life as. It's a good thing I don't have a TV because like yeah, that's what I'm doing now. Like I get home and I start reading about pottery. So it's been fun. Yeah. Hey, your birthday's in 13 days.
Nice. It is.
Yay, you're almost 30.
It's coming up. Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about the timing of stuff, I'm like, I don't think I'm going to do that mystery box sale on my birthday. That sounds like too much work.
Every year when I had...
I'm like, I'll hold off.
Every year when I had the shop, I did a sale on my birthday for however much I was. And it was fine, like when I turned 25, 26, you know? And then it...
Like 26% off,
yeah,
is that what you mean?
Yeah,
or?
And then it got to like 30% off, and I was like, whoa, this is a lot. But it's fine.
Did you see Justin Rawshank did that April Fool's sale? I don't know if you've seen that in the past, but he starts at like 7 a.m. and he starts at 50% off everything, and then at like 11 a.m. he'll drop it down to like 40%.
Oh, that's how that went. Okay.
Like, it slowly kind of tapers off throughout the day. It was pretty cool. We got some stuff 2 or 3 years ago, I think.
Nice.
So that's a cool idea, and he just hosted every April
That's
Fool's
cool.
Day,
That's a great idea. Yeah. Okay, so what are we talking about today? I feel like we should probably skip all the questions because
that's fine. We're already 20 minutes in.
Yeah, it's a continuation of last week's.
Yeah, so it's basically part 2 of Art Show question and answers, which we got from you all through Instagram. So we'll do these occasionally, whether it's a story post and we're like, hey, give us some questions about this topic, or it's a post and we're just like, hey, put some comments down here with questions, and we'll compile them and we'll do that. So that's what this came from. If you didn't send us questions, that's how this came about. We'll do those more in the future. So you all have no shortage of questions, which is great. That keeps the content moving and keeps us
seriously
talking, so.
I feel like you remember when we did the podcast with Paul Blaze, and he was like, how do you guys like how do you not run out of stuff to say?
You are the content.
And I was like, I don't fucking know.
You're like, I find out the day of, and like minutes of, and I'm like, all right, that's what we're talking about. Let's do it.
Also, I was gonna say this before we start. I was thinking about this today, and I was thinking about how I get excited to do the podcast, but like that, we get to like hang out for like 3 hours every week, and I was thinking about like if the podcast ever ends, we'll probably still do like a video chat every week.
What would cause it to end though? That we would still chat? That we would not host? I don't know,
because we are not the types of personalities to like
hold a grudge and be like, okay, fuck that
right.
person.
We're not the type
forever.
of personalities, both of us, to be like, no, fuck you, I'm never talking to you again. So I don't think that we'll ever like not be friends, but I mean, sometimes things end, and I don't want it.
Things happen.
Yeah, I don't want it to end, but I'm just saying that if it did end, I feel like we're going to be talking like once a week for the rest of our lives. And I'm kind of excited about
it. Love it. It's like a consistent thing, and it is fun to be like, all right, what day were you talking today? When are we getting together?
Yeah. My friend was like, oh, right, it's Wednesday, podcast day. It's like... Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. We are starting.
So a lot of these first questions are going to be about booth setup. I think at the end of last week, we kind of ended with, getting ready for your show, making sure you have everything you need and like ready to go so that when you get there, you know what's going on. And this one's about booth setup. So the first one talks about setup and breakdown time. So that's like, I guess this is how long does it take you to set up and break down, and what about for you? You've been doing the same consistent setup for, weeks every week for
5 years.
4 or 5 months of the year, and then you do it for 5 years. Like
yeah. Well, let's read Ashley's comment because I feel like there's a lot of stuff. Should we read the comment and then we can talk about it? Okay.
Sure.
She says, this is Ashley Boldover Ceramics. And then Shelby Shawning Pottery also said setup and breakdown time. Ashley says, would love to hear how your booth setup has changed over the years. Oh, never mind. We'll read that one next. Anyway. Hello, Becca. Okay, so my booth setup and breakdown time. My booth setup time is an hour and a half. This is a 10 by 20 booth outside. I'm putting up exterior walls, rolling them up, and all the weights and all the things. But I should mention that we park right next to our booths. So it's not like we're carting anything in. There's no dollies. It's all just pull it out of the van and put it where you need it. So my booth setup is an hour and a half, 2 hours at the most, and an hour if the gremlins are helping. There's like two kids that kind of help sometimes. Pay them $1.
What are they helping you do it's not like taking pots out and putting them on
Sure,
shelves,
yeah,
is
yeah,
it?
yeah.
Or
yeah.
is it? Oh, okay.
They've been around the booths for so many years, they know. But
Okay.
they're not gremlins either. They're awesome. Anyway, moving on. So an hour and a half to set up. I would say the majority of the setup is the the framing. So getting the 2 tents up. So set up the 2 tents, half height, roll up all of the side walls, like install all the side walls, roll them up, bungee them up, and then put both of the other tents up, like all the way up to the top, and then put in my frame for my shelf, and then put in my shelving, and then put up the tables, and then the hanging table in the middle. And then the pottery, like putting the pottery out, takes like no time because I don't care what it looks like. So, and like you do it so many.
Is it like, yeah, you kind of know like all the mugs can go here and all the bowls and whatever can go here. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so I get there.
So that show starts at what time, and when are you setting up when you get there? Like,
I get there at...
So it's like 9 a.m.
I
start?
would have gotten there at
or
7:30 and started at 9. But usually I got there late at 8 and started at 9:30. Because I was the farthest driving one. I would drive an hour and a half. So,
yeah. And you're like when it's 9 o'clock, you're probably just putting pots out on shelving. You're not like still like clicking your frame in and all that stuff.
No.
Like, you've already got the structure there. You just don't have pots and inventory on the shelves.
Right.
Yet.
And also this is a show that's like super laid back. So if you're not ready by like 9:30, 10 o'clock, who cares? Like, it's a tourist town.
Yeah.
You know, your car needs to be moved, but that's about it. So, and then tear down, I think the fastest I've ever torn down is 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But usually it takes like 45.
Yeah, I've probably done about that time too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're always doing this by yourself for the most part, except for the 2 helpers occasionally.
Yeah, and only one of them would help. They're twins, so only one of them would help. But yeah, doing it by myself. Yeah, but remember, I'm not wrapping pots. I'm just packing them and hauling them. And I also don't drive with my pots very far because I would park my van in Leavenworth and then drive my car home. So keep that in mind.
So you're bringing your car with new stock.
Yeah.
And you're leaving pots in there week to week if you need to in your tent, and all that stays in the van.
Yeah, on somebody's property.
You're not traveling. Gotcha.
So I drive to my van, put new pots in the van, pick up the van, drive to the show, and then... Yeah.
Okay. I didn't realize you were doing that. I thought you were driving the van back and forth, but that makes more sense now. Because, you wouldn't want to have to transport all that weight if you didn't have to. I
used to, but yeah, it's a lot easier. When I found some place to park it over the week, it was a lot easier to do it that way.
Yeah.
Okay, what about you?
Yeah, I would say for me, if the show starts at 10, I'm usually getting there about 8 because I like to leave a little bit of leeway. Some of the shows that I do, it differs. Like, you know what spot you're going to, you know how you're going to set it up because you're in the same spot pretty much week to week, right?
Mm-hmm.
The visitors are going to approach your booth at the same kind of area. The neighbors are going to be in these spots. But mine have a little more flexibility. Sometimes I don't even know exactly where I'm going to be until I get there. So I have to be flexible with leaving myself some time to figure out how I want to set the booth up. I usually have pretty standard like setups that I can do. And, I get there at 8, starts at 10. I've probably got my tent up and got the tables out and tablecloths on in 30 minutes or so. But yeah, like you said, some of them you do have to dolly work in. A lot of them that I've been doing, you can like pull right up and drop your stuff and then go park your car, walk back to the lot or walk back to wherever the show is, and then start setting up. So yeah, I would say 30-ish minutes to get the general stuff set up. I have the tables and the tablecloths and stuff. And then I'll start putting pots out. So I am a little more particular with putting pots out because, like, if Rachel's there and she's helping me, I'll usually give her an easy task, like, okay, the mug rack's up, just put mugs on the rack, because I don't really care. They're random. They're
right.
20 to 25 on a rack. Like, just put them on the rack, and then, I might be like, okay, put the oil bottles out, because they all go on one shelving unit or whatever, and they're kind of staggered. Just mix up the colors, but for the most part, the other stuff, like putting other things on the table in organized fashion, of like keeping the heights of things going kind of up and down as your eyes move, and mixing up what colors go next to what colors in the like shelving cubbies and stuff like that. Like, I want it to look a certain way, so I am a little more particular, and I take my time to set that stuff up so that it looks inviting and nice and keeps your eye moving through the booth. And that's like an hour or so doing that, and I'm not usually rushing. Like, I'm pretty lax there. I can take my time. I'm always, definitely get there earlier if you can, especially if you haven't set up a lot of booths, or you need to shift with the weather. If it's going to rain that day, maybe you move your tables in a little bit closer, so they're under the tent, so they're not outside the tent. You don't want to have it outside the tent, it get rained on, your tablecloths get ruined. Luckily with pottery, we can get it wet and it's not a big deal, but if you have bags and tablecloths and all that stuff under the table, it could get wet. Like, be cautious of that and kind of plan ahead. But I'm mostly thinking about the customer flow of, like, where am I situated? Am I on a corner? Am I not on a corner? With COVID, you generally have a bit more space around your booth, so you're not going to be right next to a neighbor, and you can pretty much organize your booth however you want, and it's pretty much going to work from one show to the next, because you're definitely going to have all four sides like accessible, or 3 of the 4 sides accessible. So yeah, that's kind of what I would say. Plus, some shit happens every now and then where you take a wrong turn, or you haven't gone to that show before and you take the wrong turn and you get off at the wrong exit or something, and you take a 15-minute detour and you're set back in time. Like, don't expect everything to work out perfectly, because I had that happen last year or something. You get up and your alarm doesn't go off at 7, and you wake up and it's like 8, and you're like, oh shit, I'm behind. Luckily, my vehicle's already packed up. Like, definitely make sure all your stuff is in the vehicle, so all you gotta do is get in the vehicle and go.
Don't forget your tent tops.
Like, that's happened to me. Yeah. Yeah, try to go through that checklist a little bit the day before if you can, so that you're not scrambling the morning of, or finding that stuff out when you unpack and you start setting up. Like, make sure you have everything you need. Don't forget, like, your money box and stuff like that.
I've forgotten money so many times. What was I going to say? Oh, yes. The first outdoor show that I ever did was a farmer's market. It was in Snohomish, and it was right before I started Leavenworth for the first time. And I think it was on a Thursday. My neighbor called me 3 hours before, and she says, I'm in a lot of pain. You need to take me to the hospital. And so the hospital's one town over. And so I took her, and it turned out she had an ectopic pregnancy, and she was like bleeding internally. And had I not taken her, bad things probably would have happened. But so I took her in her car with her two, like her nephew and her niece. And then her husband drove to the hospital, and then I took his van to our house, and then got my van, and then took it to the farmer's market, and I was like an hour late.
Oh my gosh.
For like, and I remember.
It's like, sorry, family emergency.
I remember it was like my birthday weekend or week. It was so eventful, and I remember him handing the keys to his van, and he says, "Drive it like you stole it." It was great. Thank God Hillary lived. Anyway, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and my quickest breakdown time was 30 minutes at a farmer's market, so it was like, like Rachel was there, table, whatever, fold it up, get it out, 30 minutes. But normally I'm taking time, and it's probably like an hour at least on average.
You'll figure out how fast you can do it when it starts to rain.
Yes. Yes, you certainly can.
When you see a storm coming in. Yeah. Okay. I love this question.
You want to read Ashley's?
Yeah. Would love to hear how your booth setup has changed over the years. From the very first show to now, I know I shudder at how my first booth setup was. Also, walking that line of how many shows to apply to versus Etsy updates versus consignment shops, and making sure you leave yourself enough studio time to keep up with it all. Pretty much, how much do you manage the time management related with all of that?
That last part just made me laugh a lot. All right, do you want to talk with your booth setup? How did it evolve over time?
Oh, I was on mute. Yes, I do. My booth setup has changed so much. So
was that your first booth setup, the one that like flipped over, the tent flipped over and all
no.
that? Or one of your first booth setups? No, that was just a random.
Wait, no, it was. Okay, so yeah, because before that I was doing interior shows, and for those doing interior shows, and then I was using, the metal carts that are on wheels that have the notches on them that you can put the metal shelves on? Okay, yeah. So I had those poles, and then I made myself some cedar shelving units that fit onto those metal poles. They actually looked really cool. They were a little wonky, but they looked really cool. And those were my shelving units for my interior shows, and then when I went to the exterior shows, I was like, this will work, this won't work. For some reason, it wasn't going to work. And so I
mean, rain could be a factor for that for sure, if you get the wood and the metal wet and
right.
all that. But
so anyway,
if it's under,
I did it, but I did it with OSB instead. I made bigger shelves with the same metal poles with OSB, and they looked fucking terrible. They looked so fucking bad.
Did they have support in the middle? Because I feel like OSB is so flimsy. I can imagine when you put pottery on there, it's just gonna weigh it down.
They weren't that big, but they look so bad. Okay, they didn't look so bad. Yeah, they did. They looked terrible.
Did you paint the OSB, or was it just straight OSB?
No, of course it was straight OSB. Are you kidding me? Hello, who are you talking to?
I had an idea it was, but
okay, so
for the
that
listeners,
was my first one, and then I was talking to another potter or something, and then I made those fold-out shelves where they are a V, and then you put the board on top. Mm-hmm. So I made those.
So you have a couple of those that go together, and those are the frames, basically, and yeah.
They're like ladders that fold out. So I made those, and I had boards, and those were black and gray. And then those looked terrible, and one of them almost fell over once.
Why do they look terrible? Is it because the pots just don't go with it?
They didn't look terrible, I guess, but no, I just didn't make them very well. I'm not very, it's taken me a long time to really get a style, because I don't my style is, I don't know, I just have a weird style, and I just don't I guess I just didn't realize that people cared what things look like, because I don't care what things look like. If it looks like shit, but the product's good, then it's fine, I'm gonna buy it. And then I was like, this is dumb. These are dumb. And then I started doing hanging shelves. So
I feel like I've never actually seen that. I've maybe seen a couple photos, but I don't know that I've seen a good photo or two of this setup. We should definitely share this on Instagram if we have past photos.
Marshall always said that it wasn't a week unless Becca was working on her booth. I literally, changing my booth was my hobby. So then I got hanging shelves. Okay, so the hanging shelves were boards, and they had holes in them, and they were attached to rope, and then the ropes, hung from the frame of the booth. And that's actually why I ended up getting easy up frames, because they were so much sturdier than the frames that I had.
Yeah.
And then after that, I still had the hanging shelves, but then I was like, I really want my mugs to be on a wall instead of on a shelf, and so then I made this pegboard system that had the mugs, and that I made a frame out of piping and then hung the frame and attached that to the frame of the booth. This was all also just to tie the booth down so it wouldn't fling over. And then,
so you're basically adding more weight to the frame structure.
Yeah. And then
oh my gosh.
And then I finally went with my last and final design, which will be forever and ever, amen, which is 2 very tall shelving units that are 8 feet long, that have 7 shelves, that are 3 ladders, essentially, and they attach to the frame of the booth, and then the shelves go across, and they create like a whole shelving system on the side of the booth, on each side of the booth, and then there's one hanging shelf in the middle. And that's all inside. That's inside a 20 by 10 20
booth.
by 10 booth. It could be done on a 10 by 10 booth if it wasn't overnight. I mean, it could be done.
Because you don't want the shelves like bordering the edge.
Right, and one of the shelves has to be attached to the frame pole. They can't just be freestanding. So, for stability.
Gotcha.
And so that really just was super clean. It was all wood finish. It was like super clean setup, just very modern, that like modern wood finish that people are doing right now, the IKEA wood. And it worked really, really well. Super well. So.
Nice. So we'll see that at the Backyard Craft Show, right? We'll see
no,
that
we
up,
won't.
Or you don't have
I don't have the shelving unit anymore, but I would like to make a new shelving unit, actually. So maybe. Yeah. But I like these.
Did you bring the hanging wood, though? The hanging wood shelf?
No, I think I threw that away. But that was just a piece.
I pictured the hanging wood shelf would be like, was that like a live edge piece of wood?
No, it's just a fucking piece of plywood from Lowe's.
Oh.
Very less fancy.
I was picturing like a cool rope and live edge wood, like a slab that looked cool, and you stained it and polyed it.
That's extremely heavy.
Oh, the straight wood. It is pretty heavy, actually. I mean, my desk is made out of that.
Yeah.
But I can see like a 1-inch slab.
No, the backyard show will probably be my farmer's market setup, and I might add a tablecloth.
All right, so my booth setup, my first one was standing shelving unit that was ladders on each side, and then it had a board going across with, I think, 6 shelves or something like that. And then they were all screwed together. So it did take some time to screw it all together. And I used that because I didn't really have any other option of shelving. You do like the folding shelving or whatever that opens, and you have the shelves that go down. So first one was that on one side, and then I think I had a table on the back side that I put some stuff on. And I had, in the front, I had one of those like little bitty like bookshelves that you get from like Big Lots or whatever, that's like small, and I think I just put like a couple vases on it or something and something on top. It was like I was just trying to get as much shelving, linear feet of shelving that I could, and you kind of do whatever you can. And then from there I kind of went with the table setup. I probably stuck with that for like the rest of that year, which I did like 3 shows maybe, because that's what I had. And I think I was transporting that in my in my Altima maybe, before we even got an SUV. I think I like put all that in there, and you got to finagle like what you can fit in there, and it was pretty tough. But and then I went with the folding shelving setup, which was the shelves that they fold together, and it's really shallow. It's probably 4 inches thick maybe. You unfold the sides, and then you flip down the shelves. And I think I had 2 of those in like a lighter color wood. I think I got them secondhand from Goodwill or something like that. I think my mom found them. And then put those on top of tables, and then I would use little like the reclaimed wood from my parents' fence that I actually still use some today with the cubby hole kind of thing, and like horizontal kind of shelves, and then I would like put pots on top of that. So that's what I was using for quite a bit. And then now I'm pretty much doing the tabletop, 2 tables, and I've got one of those cubby shelves on one side, and then I pretty much just use like horizontal shelving of and I like made one that was like a stair step one too, that I think I might make a second one of those that are pretty small to put together, and you just kind of have the feet to hold it, and then you just put the table, the shelves on top of it that secure it so it doesn't shift left and right. And that's pretty much what I use now. And then I have the like hanging mug rack that I hang off of a piece of pipe that I bungee to my tent frame.
Also, it weights down your tent, which is nice. So,
yeah. I mean, that mug rack's pretty good. And it can like sway a little bit. It's pretty nice. Got some good compliments on that.
I forgot to say there was one more addition. His eyes are like,
what was it? You have a table in the back though? What do you pack at?
Oh yeah, there's like a 4-foot table in the back. But and then another hanging shelf. Anyway, no. But at one point I decided I want to sell paintings in my booth. At one point I decided that I wanted to sell paintings, and so instead of having walls for the paintings, I decided that I needed to hang chains, and so I made this system.
Chains?
Yeah, chains. So I made this system out of PVC pipe at 1 foot with T brackets in it, and so the chains hung down, and then I used little S hooks to like hang the pieces on the chains. So it was like every 1 foot, so I could hang them, and then all my paintings were all bracketed at 1 feet, and it was really cool, except for when it was windy.
I was gonna say, so they're just free hanging from like one spot. There's nothing that they're like that they can like blow against that's gonna keep them from moving.
No.
Yeah. Did you sell any paintings?
One. In my shop.
I think I remember you showing that setup.
I actually moved it to my shop.
A couple years ago, wasn't it?
I moved it to my shop and hung them that way in my shop. So. Anyway, okay. Let's. Oh.
What about the rest of that question?
Yeah, you got to answer that. That's not for me.
Okay, so this is about how do you balance the whole applying to shows versus Etsy versus consignment. I just overcommit like a son of a bitch. Like, I don't know. Like, I know about how many shows I can do and what I can handle, and I just try to rise to the occasion, make as much shit as I can, and just keep it going. That's not really an answer for you. Sorry, but
I overcommit.
Well, the thing is, the consignment shops, like you already got that commitment there. I mean, you can say. One thing that I can recommend, I guess, try to get your deliveries to the consignment shops like before the heavy season. Like try to get those done. And usually I'll deliver to them before the spring, like in the late winter, or at like August, September. That way it's not right in the middle of the summer, because the summer is usually like the heavier times when I'm doing the shows and like figuring out what inventory I need to restock on. And I'm not making as consistently, so if I had to make a bunch of stuff for consignment and deliver it, it would take a big chunk away from the show. So, I mean, I would say constantly make stuff. That helps you get more flexibility with, do I have enough stock for shows? Do I have enough stock for an Etsy update? And I wasn't really... I feel like this year I'm going to have a lot more show inventory that I need to keep up with, and then like if I want to do Etsy updates frequently, they are going to be like when I have the time. But I would say generally Etsy updates fall to the bottom of my list of what I focus on, because that's totally self-guided. Like, when do I want to take photos? When do I want to list all this stuff and do the shipping and stuff? So I do have some items that are pretty consistently on the shop all the time that I'm always making, which are usually the spoon rest, the the shot glasses and stuff like that. So those are always there. But, you know, having a batch of feeling like I have to put pressure on myself to say, I need to do an Etsy update every month. I don't do that. I don't know. I just do it when I kind of feel like I can manage it.
Yeah.
So.
I would also say I would add to that because, like, I have done the whole shows and, like, doing, you know, flash sales and then also having my own shop to sell in as well. And if you feel like you're getting overwhelmed, try outsourcing some of the stuff to people that may want to, like, work for you. Like, I had employees, and so, you know, they would make my garden stakes, something that they could do. But what's really great is when you're gone, have somebody weigh out all your clay. Like, do little things that, like, give little tasks to people, like, while you're gone at the shows, that when you come back, you don't have to worry about, like, doing that, like, the bummer stuff, you know? So.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good...
Especially, I feel really invigorated when I get back from a show because I'm like, oh, all these mugs sold. And then you're like, okay, I need to start glazing some. So you kind of pull from the bisqueware that's ready to go. And you're like, okay, I need to glaze 4 in this color and 3 in this color. So that's pretty... I get really kind of the juices flowing when I'm like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to be in the studio and I'm going to be glazing some stuff. Or take an extra day off if you need an extra day besides the show day. And, you know, do what you got to do. But it gives me a roadmap of what I need to focus on for that week. And like Becca's saying, if you don't have to worry about weighing out clay...
Yeah, show season is the perfect time to do that because you do have the extra money, typically, to put towards that, you know?
Yeah. All right, so the next question is from Bearded Pottery. How important is your booth? Most shows require a booth picture, but what if I don't have one? Do I just take pictures of my stands, or do I set up in an empty parking lot? Lumber is expensive, So how nice should I go for booth display? Do you think it helps to sell work if your booth display is more cohesive and pretty? I would say start somewhere and work your way up. Don't feel like you have to hit it out of the park off the bat.
I think that...
Like, I would feel bad if I spent a ton of money and I didn't sell that well. And you're just in it for like $500 that you spent to make this booth look all great, and you spent all this time.
Don't be like Becca and go through a billion shelf designs. You know what? Actually, also first, I would recommend if you're looking for a cheap booth setup display, the Ivar shelving units from IKEA are a really good, clean setup. They look nice. They're easy to put together. You need a drill, but that's not hard to bring. And other than that, they just snap in. And the drill's only for the back. There's like a back crossbar. But you could support it. If you did one across your whole booth, you could support it to your frame easily, very easily.
Is that like the natural wood shelving that you can choose where the shelves go vertically?
Yeah. And they have skinnier ones and bigger ones. And those ones are really affordable, like super affordable. Because in reality, you're going to be spending $100 to $200 on shelving units if you do make it from lumber. Because lumber is actually not cheap. Like he said, it's not cheap. So that's what I would recommend if you're looking for a cheap solution that looks really nice, that looks like really clean and modern. And you can do lower shelves too, like waist high. But I will say, Tim C always says don't put anything below your knees. Because you don't want people to be reaching down. I always put my seconds on the bottom, but I think that's the exception. But yes.
I pretty much stay like waist and up, but like knees and up.
Yeah, but also bringing a table is totally fine too. I think that starting simple at first is great. And yes, you do go out into an empty parking lot, you set up your booth, and you take a picture of it. That is exactly what you do. Unless they let you draw it.
Plus, that helps you know how to pack your car, too.
Absolutely.
That gives you practice packing your vehicle. I a lot of my booth setup is limiting based on what I can fit in my vehicle. I'm not going to say every show Rachel has to take her vehicle and drive, because that's not always a reality. She can't always come to the show. So if I rely on 2 vehicles, or I got to go rent a vehicle now to like, I'm doing what I can do with the vehicle that I have. So that's a lot of what shelving I'm working with.
Andrew, my best friend, is like, he only does indoor shows, but he does like big indoor shows, and they have like a 20 by, it's like 10 by 30 or 10 by 40 space or something crazy like that. And he bought a box truck. He bought a box truck with a lift gate, and all of his shelving rolls right into the box truck, and he just wraps around it with saran wrap and rolls it right on in.
Nice.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I just looked up the Ivar shelf. It's $85.
Yeah, I mean, like, and you can add as many shelving units as you want. It's super they're honestly under $100 for a shelving unit like that, and they look so nice. Like, you really can't go wrong.
It's pretty tall too.
Yeah, and you can cut them down too. You can cut it in half. Like, Rebecca has them right in front of me, actually, and they're right behind me.
Cut them in half and put them on a tabletop.
Yeah, because they're like 6 feet tall, I think. So she has, no, maybe they're 8 feet tall. She has 4 feet tall here, and then 3 feet tall over there. And yeah, so like you can cut them and like get creative with it, and you can use the top as a table. And I know many crafters and show goers that use them in their booths, and they always look nice. So.
They do look clean.
Yeah. And that wood finish is really in style right now, but you can also, if you want it to look a little fancier, stain it. Stain it a dark brown. But yes, your booth setup is pretty important. How it looks.
And then the last thing he did add on there was he asked about business insurance for shows. Did you have like liability insurance for anything for shows? Some shows that I did required it, some didn't.
I still need to cancel my insurance, so yeah. Yes, I had business insurance regularly, but you can get a business insurance like for a 3-day show from ACT Insurance, I believe.
Yeah, actinsurance.com.
Yeah,
I think.
And you can buy it, and it's pretty cheap if you need to. If you don't need to, then don't. Yeah.
Yeah, if it's a farmer's market, like, you don't need to spend $40 for business insurance for the day. And like, so I'm looking into some options with my actual insurance provider for the year, because I had to pay for it a few times last year. So, all right, do you want to read the next one? I think that it kind of relates, but
Das pottery. Das? No. DASAS pottery. I've always wondered if a fancier booth sells more than a basic one. I usually do a basic booth setup. I put some wooden crates, small and big ones, on a table as to simulate shelves, and in the summer I buy some flowers to decorate for pre-Christmas shows. I usually have some gnomes and trees to decorate, but I've seen others, mostly non-ceramic booths, that decorate with lights. Some actually bring IKEA shelving units. Ding, ding, ding. Some bring snacks for customers. Do you think a fancier booth would sell more, or is this taking the focus away from the ceramics? Oh, wait, this was Aletha Bean. No, okay. Yeah, that's okay. We're good. Yes.
I could see it different ways.
Yeah.
Like, it could look more curated and like fancier, and look like you're creating an atmosphere of your booth, versus, sometimes it could be too like overkill and distract from the work.
I think it definitely depends on the show that you're at, but also it depends on your pieces. Like, if you have very modern pieces, I would say that you need to match that. So if you have modern, higher end pieces, you probably want to go with a more simple, like, shelving unit that's basic but nice. Like, basic but nice, and it showcases,
because your pieces are gonna have a lot of the busyness to them. And you don't want the shelving to take and overwhelm them.
And then, but yeah, I mean, like, I don't think decorations are important, personally. If you're at a, now, let's be clear. If you are at a, like, junkyard sisterhood traveling pants show with a bunch of middle-aged white women, yeah, you need to decorate your booth. Preferably.
Are you talking about ones where people use a bunch of burlap and they have like carpet rugs on the floor and they have the lights and all that stuff?
So if you're at a show like that, yeah, you do need to kind of fit that theme. But if you're at a farmer's market or an outdoor show, I think that simple is a little bit better, usually. Clean.
Yeah. The most I do for Christmas and stuff, I have a little 2-foot tree or 1-foot tree that I put on my table and I hang ornaments from it. And it's the same one I use. I don't have lights or anything, and I just put it on my booth and on a certain little shelf or whatever to add a little Christmas stuff to it. But it's not. Other than that, it's the same throughout the whole year.
Yeah, Ryan's setup is really, really good. I'll show my setup too. We'll put it up on pictures. I need to find my pictures, but yeah, I personally think that you should be showcasing your pottery instead of making it fancy. But you can do that without making it look too... I don't think basic is the right word. I think clean, simple is good.
Yeah. And I feel like it's a cool challenge for me. I think I'm skilled in where the eye moves through the booth. And that's important too, of just thinking of if somebody's coming to the booth, what are they looking at? And to keep your eye moving to the different pieces, see like what colors are near what, and then like are the spoon rests on the tabletop so they can kind of see the different colors and like what they're used for, and then they move their eye over to the shot glasses or the air plants and like all those different things of keeping your eye moving kind of up and down on the table is a way to build some vertical attention that's not so
also
flat.
Have a basket that people can put their hands in. We used to have this saying. Marshall was the photographer that was always, I don't know, I was always next to Marshall because I like him, but he's a cool guy, and he would always say, you know, the longer you can have the people be in your booth, the more you'll sell. And so one day I was like, the longer they stay, the more they'll pay.
Oh gosh, that was great with his cone.
Yes. So my friend did like a video of my booth, and he's like, welcome to 5 Lines Pottery. Remember, the longer you stay, the more you'll pay. He's like, keep your hands and ears inside the booth at all times. But anyway,
that was great.
Anyway, with that point, try to get like a basket, you know, fill up small pots in a basket, make it approachable for people to pick up, touch.
Yeah, I have those little Michaels crates that are only maybe 4 or 5 inches tall, and I put a bunch of spoon rests in there. I actually got bigger ones this year because I felt like I was still bringing extra spoon rests, and by the time you lay them out on the table, your little tray is empty. So give them something that they could flip through. I use the same thing with the shot glasses. I throw a whole bunch of 50 shot glasses in a bin. Plus it's easier. It goes in the car. It goes right on the table. You don't have to like unload anything. You just put it out there and let people pick through it. It's fun. So you probably did the same thing with your mise en place, didn't you?
I just left them in the container,
a bin or something. Okay, Aletha. Do you find that a tightly packed table with lots of options does better, or a curated collection? Definitely don't put every single thing that you have at the show out on the table.
Unless you have a 10 by 20 booth, and then it doesn't even fill it if you do.
Yeah. Yeah. I try to have some backstock so that I can pull from, but also the whole visual interest of like, don't overwhelm their eyes with every single thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes more options is not better. Some customers need fewer options so as to not overwhelm them. I mean, I have customers that are picking through shot glasses and they're spending 15 minutes picking 3 shot glasses. Like, that happens too.
Yeah. Totally. I feel like we answered a lot of these questions on the last show. The ones
down below?
Also,
Yeah,
wait,
we did answer
in
that
in
one.
Aletha, also in regards to your question, I find that sometimes too many options is not great. So shows are a really great time to figure out what people are attracted to and start making more of those items, and like really narrowing down your style and your pieces. Like,
Is that as in like types, different numbers of
yeah,
forms that you
yeah,
make?
yeah.
And you also figure out, like I had a show where I put a whole bunch of planters on a shelving unit, and I used half the table for that, and one planter
Right,
sold. Just because you have all those out there doesn't mean it's going to sell. Plus, it just wasn't intuitive what it was.
right.
So keep that in mind of like, is it obvious? Like, can I put a spoon on this thing and people get that it's a spoon rest?
Yeah.
Or put a succulent that's inside of like a plastic pot and just stick it inside of your pot to know that it's a
Right.
planter, you know.
Cool. Okay. What do we got? We have a few more.
Yeah, some of these were from the Instagram list. That's why some of them are
Oh,
repetitive,
okay.
but
I don't. Please break.
do you want to start at the
Please
top?
break down types of shows, guilds, galleries, schools, markets, and how they differ. I am not. This is not my question, so go for it if you'd like. I don't know.
We already kind of talked about like farmers markets and stuff like that. I would say those are going to be lower average price items. Like based on where I
Yeah.
live, the average price of something I'm going to sell there is probably $30 and
Yeah.
under.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
They're not going to be they're not going to buy a big, huge vase or something on average. They're not going to spend $75 if they're going to pick up their groceries for the week. And typically the thing for that. The other markets, like outdoor monthly things, and people are out drinking beer at the event and hanging out with the family for the weekend. Like, you might sell, they might be gift giving. I would say the average price is probably a little bit higher that they're willing to spend, maybe $35, something like that. They might be buying multiples. And let's see, guilds, galleries. I'm not sure about the guilds thing. I don't know if that's like you're selling amongst peers that are also in a clay guild.
Would the guilds kind of be
Maybe that's
like?
what that
Would
means?
I don't even know what a guild is, but I'm just thinking of like the Boulder Pottery Guild, or wouldn't like
Yeah, I think that's like the Clay Alliance is a guild.
or like the Queen City Clay is kind of like a guild, I suppose, in a way.
Yeah, I would say they're more like a gallery if they're selling at Queen City
Okay.
Clay. They have a guild. But yeah, it's like a community of the same peers. So you're probably selling amongst other clay artists in the guild. And I would say people that come to those shows are going to know what they're coming for. Like, they're coming for clay. They really love clay. So you're probably going to sell some oddball stuff that people gravitate to that maybe you wouldn't sell at a typical show with people that don't have a lot of ceramics. And yeah, the sales could vary because you're in competition with a lot of other potters that are there or clay artists that are there. So it could be kind of a high or low depending on where your prices sit. I would say that's where your prices in relation to your neighbors and stuff like that matter more potentially, but also your style needs to be unique enough to set yourself apart. Don't be changing your prices and stuff based on what their prices are, but
Yeah.
like, that's where there's more uncertainty with other peers of the same medium near you. Galleries. Usually galleries, fewer inventory. You're not going to get as many sales super quickly, just because the gallery foot traffic, I feel like, is more slow over time. But galleries, I don't know, that could also be like Indigenous is a gallery, but they have a lot of foot traffic because they're a retail shop. Or I'm thinking of galleries, like gallery showings, where it's like an exhibition. I don't know. I mean, they're going to take a cut of it for sure. I'm not sure about the school shows. The school shows might be like, there's a lot of high schools
I feel
around
like
here
school
that
shows
have
are where
shows
it's at,
that-
man. Like,
I feel like that's kind of like crafty a lot of times.
yeah, but sometimes you can fucking kill it at school shows because all those kids'
I feel like the
parents
school shows are like a step up from like a church show.
Yes. It depends. It depends on if you go to the church of the church show, because if you go to the church of the church show, then the church show is above the school show. But also, if your kid is in the school, you're above the church show, because then you know all the parents. The more people you know at the show, the more you'll sell.
Right. Yeah, I feel like the school ones and the church ones you're going to get some other crafters and artist level work. The booth fee's going to be cheaper, probably. Similar to the farmer's market booth fee. I think that's pretty good. That's probably a good rundown there. Next one, how do you find shows to apply when all the website this one made me laugh, when all the local websites seem to be out of date? That's my biggest struggle in finding contacts locally. Like I was saying in the last one, Facebook is a good resource. I feel like if they don't have a good website, they don't have like a Facebook business page about their show, they don't have events on social media about, like, I'm a little iffy with some of those shows and applying to them, because if they don't realize that they can reach a bigger audience of people by having events on Facebook or something, like, I don't know. I feel like
you're judging a show by its
gonna
Facebook.
sell there. Are you not judging a show by its website and how good they're like keeping up with it?
Some of the best shows I've seen
I sometimes do. But if it's like the 50th annual, I mean, it's got its reputation. But if it's a show that you haven't heard a lot about and it hasn't been around very long, and they don't have a Facebook page for their event, and they don't have a website, or the website's out of date, like, I don't know how big their audience is already.
I think that also, what's that Facebook group that the artist show?
Are you talking about art?
Yeah, art fair reviews. Go on that one, see if they
art show reviews.
See, you can also just do a shout out to a bunch of the potters around you. Say, like, even if you like went on to Clay Buddies and was like, hey, I live here, does anybody know of some good shows in this area? You know, that might be helpful. Yeah.
Yep. And then the next person was like, is there a resource with a big old monster list of shows in their deadlines?
Yeah, there is, but we don't know what it is.
I don't know what it's called. I've compiled my own list. That's my monster list. So if somebody's in the Cincinnati area and you want to know some shows or whatnot, send me a DM and I will send you the list. I'll even tell you about the shows if I've done them before. I'll give you some honest feedback about them.
Let's see. I would just use Google. Just use Google. I literally just said art shows near me, and events: Broad Ripple Art Fair, Indianapolis Art Shows, Indie Arts Guides.
Talbot's probably going to be on there.
Exhibition, Indianapolis, Indiana Art Events. Arts and craft festivals. Yeah, like I just found like 20 on the Google. So
there you go. Take that list on Google, put it into a note that has a list of all of them chronologically throughout the year, and then go to each of those different sites and look up when the deadlines are, when the applications are due, and go that route. I say that's a good starting point. Don't feel like everybody's going to give you that list and it's going to be done. I feel like you have to kind of do some of that research based on your area and what kind of shows cater to the types of events you want to be doing.
Fine art fair and craft show listings. The #1 juried fine art fair listing website promoting attendance at art fairs, craft shows, and art festivals nationwide. It's called artfaircalendar.com.
There you go.
Virtual art shows, best art fairs, Midwest art fairs, Chicago, Florida, Michigan, Mid-Atlantic, New England, New York. There you go. Just use your Google.
Do the Googles.
Use the Google. I just did this live. Like.
Yep.
Okay, cool. What do you do with people who keep saying they love your work, but it's too expensive?
I just say thanks so much for the compliment. I appreciate it. I don't assume you can't assume that everybody's going to love your stuff and be able to afford it. There's a market that can afford it and likes your
It
stuff.
depends on how, yeah.
I feel like they're not, depends on how they say it, I guess, but.
It depends on how they say it. If they're snotty about it, I'll be like, sucks for you.
You'll say that?
I'm sure I've said that. I'm positive.
Oh my.
I'll be like, yeah, oh well. One time this lady asked me for a discount, and she was like, I really love these sponge holders, but I just think they're too expensive. And I was like, you know what? There's a lot of work that goes into that, and they're just the right price. And they were not even too expensive. I should have probably had them $10 more. And she's like, well, would you do a deal for 2? And I was like, no, I won't. And she's like, okay. And then she picked him up and brought him to my table, and she goes, good for you. Oh, and then when she brought him, she said, are you sure you won't do a deal? And I was like, no. And she's like, good for you for sticking to your guns. And I was like, what the fuck just happened?
And she bought both of them?
Yeah, she bought 2.
Full price.
And it was like an old lady, and she was looking for a deal. Yeah, no, I would say if they say your work is too expensive, just say, you know what, it's fine. I'm worth it. Like, I'm worth the money. Like, don't.
I usually if they'll say something like that, it depends on what it is. But if it's like a mug, I'll say, well, I have a lot of other things that are cheaper than a mug.
Yeah.
Like, if you want something in that color, like, I have spoon rests that are $12 or $15. Like, that's affordable. You got shot glasses that are $8 or $9. Like, there are things under that price that are affordable.
Yeah.
That are like an entry point.
Now,
that hopefully can be a compromise if they don't want to spend that.
Yeah.
But
if somebody says they're too cheap, if somebody says, wow, these are really cheap, you say, I can make it more expensive if you'd like.
You're like, name your price.
And then you say, you better buy it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, Tim C had some really good pointers on, like, people, like, be backs, ones that are like, oh, I'll be back. He would give them a little coin that had a discount on the back of it. And he was like, okay, you can carry this coin, and if you bring it back, you get 10% off, 20% off, or something like that. I thought that was a good. He
idea.
Made like little discs, and he has
They're ceramic ones, yeah. So it's not just like a random coin.
Right. So
like
they would
out.
like feel it, and it was like tactile. So yeah. Tim C's got some really good stories about him starting off and doing stuff. So. Okay.
All right, Shelby had another one. How do you package orders bought at the markets? I don't know if we might have talked about this.
I think
last
we
week,
did.
We?
Yeah, I wrap it in brown paper.
Maybe we didn't because we talked about the prep and stuff.
Oh, you know what? We didn't really. Like, we talked about the bags. We talked about brown.
We talked
bags.
about packing, like getting ready.
Yeah.
For the show, though.
So I use brown butcher paper. We did talk about this a little bit. I use brown butcher paper.
Yeah.
I used to just crinkle up the brown butcher paper. Now I pull it out, rip it, lay it flat. I roll it, like if it's a bowl or a cup, I will roll it and fold it over, and then I tape it closed. If it's a mug, I tape it.
Are you putting it in a bag and stuff too?
Yeah, like.
Why do you tape it?
It looks nice and it stays together. So,
okay.
when I have 3 pinch pots, because they're 3 for 15 or whatever. No, 3 for 18. I fold the pinch pot in, and then I put another one on top, and then I fold that over, and then I put another one on top, and then wrap it up, and then tape it closed, so that they don't fall apart and that they're all snug. Same with like garden steaks. I would always roll them up and wrap them, and then tape it. But mugs, I just kind of fold the paper into the mug, and then put it into the bag. What about you?
Gotcha. Yeah, I think we talked about this last week. I have that 16-inch or 14-inch roll of the masking paper from Lowe's or whatever. I pull it out, rip it, and wrap the piece and do the folding, kind of like wrapping a sub sandwich sort of thing.
Yeah. You know what I thought was a really interesting way of wrapping? When I went to the Danny's workshop, which, by the way, you should still sign up. We went to his shop, and then he sold us some stuff. And he takes paper and he crinkles it up and he wraps it around the rim. And I was like, that is extremely protective. Like,
he wraps like before he wraps the whole thing, he
doesn't even wrap the whole
the
thing. He just wraps the rim. And then maybe the bottom. Like,
is that like a mug
it was a
or
bowl. Like a bowl. Anyway, moving on. Okay, moving on. In bachelor pottery, in this COVID world, what precautions, safeguards are y'all taking to stay safe? Keep customers safe, make money, and stay sanitary. I tried to stay near the back of the booth and have mesh walls for airflow, but what else can be done? Some shows are planning 6 to 10 feet between booths, but others are planning on packing them in and hoping for the best. I thought that there was like pretty scientific evidence that airflow kind of just takes COVID away. Like, like if it's at all breezy or windy.
Yeah, I don't know about the mesh walls part, but the rest of it, I mean, I pretty much do you didn't really sell it at any shows.
Yeah, I didn't
right?
do COVID, so I mean, like I did in the store,
Okay.
and we always wore masks, obviously, and sanitizer.
Yeah, I did like 20 shows last year, so the shows that I did, the most protected one, I guess, that I did that had the most precautions was the farmer's market, because they didn't want customers interacting with the product.
That makes sense.
But that was a lot of like food
that makes
stuff. So they kind of had that standard across all the booths. So what we had to do, we had to have a customer interface table, and only one customer could approach at a time. So I had a 4-foot table at the front, and then they would interact with me there, and they would kind of like point to what they wanted behind the booth. For pottery, it's pretty tactile. Like, you kind of got to handle it a little bit. So some people would like approach if they wanted to come look. Like, it was kind of like look with your eyes kind of thing, and like don't touch. So they would kind of come around sometimes and look at the hanging mug rack, and like there's plenty of space in the booth, so I can like space out a little bit and they can look. But I personally am not worried about like transmission through surfaces. Like, I think there's some science about that, but what we would do is once an hour they would actually shout out like, hey, it's 10 o'clock, time to sanitize your surfaces. So we would normally take a spray on the table or whatever and like sanitize that area and sanitize your hands. So we would do that once an hour. That was the most overkill that we did with shows. And then anybody in line would like stand 6 feet away from the person that's currently like interfacing with the business. So that was the most like safeguard that was going on. Some people at the booth would like put rope around their tent legs and like make sure nobody came inside their tent. That was a little overkill for me, but yeah, so that's what we were doing. But all the other shows that I did for regular art shows and stuff, I would do the tables on the outside edge of the booth, and I would be inside the booth. So there would be at least 3 feet between me and the customer because the table depth. And then I have all this space behind me. I have like 5 by 5 of space behind me in the booth to kind of move away if I need to and take my U space, and people aren't coming inside of a U shape and being right on top of each other. So
that would be what
people could kind of work on the boundary. So that's what I would recommend.
Yeah.
Plus, if you got 6 feet between your neighbor, like you basically have a corner booth. Everybody has a corner booth when you're 6 feet from a neighbor.
Right. Utilize it.
This is to your benefit that you have a great option. Plus, some of the thing is people are walking by. If all they got to do is approach the edge of your booth, like that is very low effort.
Yeah.
The one of the biggest things with a booth is they have to enter the booth, and then once they enter the booth, then they can start looking and like they're going to stay there longer. But if it's on the perimeter and all they got to do is approach a 10 by 10 booth and they hit the edge of your tent and they're already there, then it's like easier. I mean, I keep the sanitizer. You mask up all day. You might bring a second mask because you're talking so much and you're sweating and all that. So, I mean, I feel like that's as good as you could do. And, like, if you want to go hardcore with it and say, don't touch anything without sanitizing your hands first. You could always do that. Say, like, don't touch anything before you sanitize. Or if you want to put all the stuff behind you and make sure that they go through you and you handle stuff. And, like, I feel like that's overkill personally. But, yeah. I mean, I still made pretty good sales. People are out and about because they're wanting to do stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like even more this year it's going to be that way because people are going to be vaccinated. They're going to be feel more confident about going out and about. And, yeah. I feel like it can only be more lax this year than it was last year.
You would think. One would think. One would hope. One would think.
But we'll see. I mean, it will differ with what the shows end up doing with the spacing of booths away from each other. And because they might be getting back to, you know, can we fit more booths in there so that we can make more money on the booth sales and, like, advertise more and all that stuff. Because they're taking a big hit by only having half the number of booths in their show.
Mm-hmm.
And they can only do so much. But yeah, we'll see what happens. And I don't know if they're going to have limitations of, like, how many people could be in the show at once. That also has an effect on the number of people at your booth and congestion and all that stuff.
Yeah. Cool.
But, yeah.
Shall I read the next?
Sure.
I did my first event last week. A very small show with 10 vendors at a brewery. That sounds fun. Good way to test and see if it was something I wanted to do again. I didn't sell much, but I learned a lot. So I recommend everyone try one. I agree. Maybe find a smaller, cheaper entry fee event to test the waters. My question is, I had quite a few planters, brought a few succulents to include if someone wanted to buy a planter and a succulent. Actually had a planter kit which included succulents, soil, and lava rocks, but it didn't seem to do so well. Do you recommend selling plants with your pots? You've done this. I would not recommend selling plants with my pots because I don't want to keep them alive, but that's, you know, that's just a personal preference.
Yeah, I've had mixed results with this. I would say it definitely depends on your event. If it's at a brewery, I feel like 10 vendors at a brewery, people are out and about, they're getting beer, they're hanging out, they're looking at the artisans, but they're probably not going to spend more than like $30 maybe. And do they want to carry around a bag with a plant and whatever while they're drinking?
Right.
Maybe not. I don't know. I had some good results with this when I was selling the macrame with the planters and the plants. But it is a lot of work up front to plant everything and sell it all together, as well as you have to transport it safely so the plants don't get messed up. And, like, it is possible. I kind of like how you did the planter kit, though. That's a fun option to do in the right setting. Like, if you... That might actually be a cool idea if you could find a local, like, plant shop. Maybe there's a plant shop that you could do, like, a pop-up at. Maybe there's a specific day of the week. Like, Bellevue has Final Friday, and, like, I could do this at Codeco one day if I wanted to sell at that shop. Like, they have plants. If I wanted to do this, you can imagine going there, talking with them, being like, hey, can I do a pop-up on a Friday night when you have your art walk or your business walk or First Friday or whatever? And you set up outside. Maybe you have some plants out there. You have your planters, and people can, like, make their own setup, pick their plant, pick their pot, and then they get all their kit and they kind of do it themselves and put it all together at home. Or maybe it's a kid's activity or something like that. Like, in the right setting, I could see that doing really well.
It'd be fun to, like, buddy up with a plant store at a show and be like, hey, can we be put next to each other? And be like, if you buy a plant here, you can plant your pot over here. That'd be cool.
Yeah. It was funny, at one of the shows I did last year, it was a different macrame artist, but they had a whole booth of macrame. And I actually I kind of talked with her at the end of a show one month, and then the next month I gave her like 10 bowls of mine and was like, hey, can we put some of these bowls in your macrame? Give them a little more context and people could see it, and then they could buy it. So we did that, and she just, like, paid me cash at the end of the day. It was like, hey, we sold 4 of these bowls. Here's the other 2 back or whatever.
Nice.
So that was pretty cool. But yeah, I've done the plants. I've not done the plants. Not doing the plants, as long as you have a sample so people, like, know what they're looking at.
Yeah, I think one sample is good, personally.
Yeah. But also I've had, you have like 10 planters with pots in the, or with plants in them, and they don't sell, and you bring them home and you got to keep watering them, and then you take them to the next show and they don't sell, or you sell 2 of them, and it's just an endless cycle of taking them.
So what we did, so I never sold planters. Well, I did sell a few planters, but what I specifically sold was garden stakes. And so we had Mr. Basil, and Mr. Basil was in one of my planters, and it lived at my friend's house, and she used Mr. Basil every week. So she would take Mr. Basil home after the show and keep him alive, and then she'd bring it back, and he'd be...
And you would just stick a few
and
stakes in there?
I'd stick a basil plant stake in there, and then it turned into a cactus because she killed Mr. Basil. And
oh. Nice.
But yeah, I definitely recommend having like one pot that shows what it is.
The only other plant thing is I sell the air plants with the planters. You do have to keep those alive, so they do take some time, but they're less...
Maintenance.
They're less maintenance, I would say, because they don't have soil and all that stuff. Like, they're easy to water, they're easy to keep alive. They are in, like, a bundle, so, like, they can take up some space on the table and stuff, but I think those are eye catchers. Like, those grab people in. And then they can pick and choose and, like, mix them up and put them with whatever pots they want. Like, that's fun.
Yeah.
So, that's a good option out there. And they're pretty cheap. Like, if you lose a air plant, big whoop. It costs, like, $1 or $1.50. Like, whatever.
All right, Aletha, you got our last 2 questions.
Yeah.
Is it worth giving up your Saturdays to be at the show physically versus letting an online presence be all? Versus like doing an online show, right? Or sale.
Yeah. I don't think she's talking about doing like a virtual show.
Right.
Which I never did last year. Like, I didn't see any benefit in doing a virtual show. Where they cancel the show and they do virtual. It depends on your personality. Like, I like the interaction with people. I like setting up my booth. I think it's fun to do that. I would much rather go to a show, or I would much rather pack up my vehicle, go to a show, unload my vehicle, set it all up in a nice fashion so that people can look at it and sell all day, and then pack it all up and bring it home, than photographing all the work, listing all the work, advertising for all the work. Like, I'd much rather do that.
Yeah, it's definitely a personal preference. I got to the point where I was making the same or more selling online than I would at a show, and so I was like, fuck that. Like, you know, it's like, I mean, I love going to the shows and stuff like that, but at the same time, if I don't have to leave my bed and I can, like...
What do you mean not leave your bed? You still have to do all that work to get it ready.
But I can sit in my bed while I'm doing it.
You hit, I set this thing lot. You're talking about like photo editing and listing and all that stuff? Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'm just used to being on my computer so often throughout the week that I'm like, any time away, I'm all for it. As well as I work from home every day, so I don't see anybody.
And I like got to the point where it was like so easy to do all the editing and like the photos and stuff like that. So it was just like wham, bam, done. And I'm like, I approach all things the same, so it was not fancy when I would do an online update. You know, it was like whatever.
Yeah.
And then...
Yeah, I'm trying a little bit more every now and then, like doing some story things, like putting a few things on stories and seeing if they sell. And it's like a small trickle of work instead of the whole big online update. Because like sometimes that could, at least for me, I don't sell out as soon as I put it up there. So I kind of get a little bit sad when it's like, it doesn't sell. Sad. Like it's been sitting there for a week. Like I went overboard. I tend to always go overboard with like, I'm going to put 6 of these and I'm going to photograph like 8 different of this color and see which ones sell. And it's like, you sold like 5 pieces. Like I did all that
I do that too.
So
when I tried to sell my earrings and I didn't sell any of them. I sold 1.
Yeah.
Anyway, thought I knew that was going to flop. Okay, Aletha, with the last question. How do you feel about having someone else man the booth? Like Ryan having Rachel take over. I feel fine.
Yeah, if it's a short period of time, I'm fine. I mean, I'm not gonna like leave and then have her, do the have the booth for like hours on end. I mean, I'll trust her to like if I gotta go to the bathroom or walk away and go do a loop around and like check on some people and hang out. But
Rebecca's here.
We got a visitor. Hi.
Yeah, I have no problems with that. Val has watched my booth many times, and other people. I've had a 12-year-old watch my booth. I have no problem with it.
I think the sales part, I feel like every time, I feel like I need like a cheat sheet for Rachel. We were going to like school her. She was going to have like index cards or something to like, here's your glaze combo. Do you know what it is? Because habitually she will get orders and then she'll put it in there and she'll be like, I didn't know what glaze it was, so I just did this. And they gave me, like, I think I ring it up right. And the analytics are off a little bit, but it's minuscule. Like, she'll sell stuff. And
yeah, you're definitely like, you take more notes than I do, so they could have given half my booth away and I wouldn't have known.
Your booth is typically hands off. Like, they pick it up and they go bring it up somewhere else, and then you wrap it
like
up.
In Leavenworth in the summers, we would when it's really fucking hot, we would go down to the river. Like 6 of us would be like, we're leaving. And everybody everybody else would man their like the other booths, like their neighbors or whatever, and we'd go down to the river, jump in the river, and then come back up.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a pretty casual show. I would not expect that at most of your shows that you're gonna sell at.
Rebecca's over here. She's like, I want to do that show. What the fuck? Yeah, no. Mary's was the director, and she'd be like, let's go down to the river.
Wait, that's the organizer.
The organizer, and she'd be like, she has these like bright pink track shorts, and she's 75 or something like that, and she's like, I brought my swimsuit today.
That's great.
So funny. And then also one time when we were down there, I found there was these people floating by, and they had a flamingo koozie for cans. And so I was like, oh my God, it's a flamingo. And this girl let me have it. And so then I got a mascot for my booth, and his name was Mango the Flamingo. And and the reason his name was Mango was because this little girl came up to my booth, and I would always float it in the water dish, because I'd always have a water dish for dogs. And I'd float the inflatable flamingo in the water dish, and this little girl comes up and she goes, "Hi, Mango." "Hi, Mango." "Mango, hi." And then she like went into the bathroom, and then she comes back out. She says, "Bye, Mango." And so we named him Mango the Flamingo.
Oh my God.
Anyway, there's your fun story for the end.
Jeez. You had that good idea at the end of the last one we talked about, where you were like, somebody else should man your booth for the day and like sell for you.
A buddy show.
Buddy show.
We're gonna do it.
I think you asked me before how Rachel does in the booth, and I'm like, yeah, it's totally a personality thing of like how you engage with somebody, and like how you're kind of like on the edge, but you're not like communicating unless they look like they want communication, and making sure you talk loud enough so they can hear what you're saying, but because she tends to talk softly. So
yeah, she you gotta say, Rachel, kick it into flight attendant mode.
I can't hear you.
Flight attendant mode, activate.
Yeah. All right. Do we have anything else? Was there any other pottery show? We didn't really talk about... There was something else we didn't talk about that we mentioned last week. Did we talk about how to pack up your boxes?
We did.
Stuff?
We talked about
the cardboard and all that stuff. I mean, you said something about like the tactics of selling.
Oh.
I don't know if we wanted to, like, high level. How do you typically, maybe a good...
Well, you never sit down. That should be said.
Yeah, I stand up the whole time pretty much. I do have the chair that's like a director's chair that's higher, so I can sit down. But one other thing is my tables I have the bed risers underneath them, the plastic bed risers that lift them up like 4 to 6 inches.
Yeah.
Depending on which risers I have, so that the table's at like 34 to 36 inches high. Because if I was down in a chair, like a lawn chair, like I do not like doing that. Because it feels like such an effort to stand up and talk, and you're like talking up to them, which is kind of weird. I'd rather look like eye to eye with them, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
So I pretty much stand up the whole time and like don't wear sunglasses so that they can like see your eyes, and it's not like, I don't know, like that's typically what I tend to do.
Yeah. I don't think you should ask me this question.
Why not? How do you do it? Because not everybody's going to do what I want to do.
When they walk in, I'm usually sitting down. Sometimes I'm painting.
You're also, it's a 10 by 20 booth, so it's a really
10 by
big
20
one.
booth, and it's from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. for 3 days in a row. So, Marshall stands up the whole time. And he has a director chair, and he's in the back, and he like sits his chair outside of his booth if he does sit. I sit in the back, and I have an umbrella. and then I say, if you need any help, let me know. Everything is microwave and dishwasher safe. That's it.
Nice.
And if they ask questions,
I mean, some people like to browse that way.
Yeah,
they don't. They don't want to feel like they're being sold to and all that stuff.
Yeah, we definitely took a very less selly approach, and I'm sure that if I tried to sell more, I would, but I'm just not that type of personality. I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it. I try to say hi to everybody. But, like, some people don't say hi to you, so you're just like, hi.
Yeah. So you are, like, looking up occasionally. You're not just, like, laser focused into your painting
not.
And your head's
Absolutely
down.
Not. And, I don't get up and walk within the booth because my booth is a U shape, so it does get kind of, like, it can get crowded, you know, if there's a bunch of people.
And you're not restocking because it sounds like your booth's big enough that you have all the stock out.
Yeah, and then I love how I'm saying this like it's present tense. This is all past tense. And, but, you know, obviously, like, if people are buying stuff, like, I've had lines through my booth, you know, and if people, this was obviously pre-COVID, if people are buying stuff and you're, like, talking and then you're just like, I love it when it's super busy and you're, like, looking around people and you're like, yeah, so that one is blah, 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 and that one is blah, 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 and I'll be with you in a second. Hold on, I've got to wrap this. And was this, blah, 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 blah. And then, like, when it's super busy, it's fucking great.
Nice. I just feel like I'm super focused on that customer that's checking out right there, so that I'm, like, showing them attention and, like, rapping while I'm talking to them, because it's the last interaction they're going to have with me. I don't want to, like, talk around them to somebody. I feel like I'm passing them up, or I kind of like I think customers like being able to self-serve when they can, and like somebody else has the attention.
I like to compliment
and then
people
they can just it's nice when they're just standing there with like a couple things in their hand. They're like ready to check out.
Like, I'm ready.
And they're like, all right, I'm next. I'm on deck.
I also I'm a huge fan of complimenting people just generally. I saw somebody with cool hair.
What are you complimenting them on?
Oh, like anything. Like, they come in and I'm like, dude, your shirt is freaking rad. Or like, you have to be genuine though. Like, and I am. But, or like they have a really cool haircut, or they have sunglasses. Like, I literally screamed across my booth, dude, where'd you get your sunglasses? You know, like, I think that that's also fun. You know, you can't scare them, but like saying, hey, I really like your shoes. Like, find something that you like about their appearance. don't say like your smile is great or your eyes are great, because then you look like you're flirting with them. One time this lady was sitting next to me and I couldn't help it. I was like, dude, I just have to tell you the best posture I've ever seen in my entire life. I just want to let you know. And she's like, thanks. I was like, yes.
See, that's like an odd compliment.
Don't do that.
Like,
don't do that. She was not shopping with me. But yeah, no, I think that complimenting people, and it opens up the conversation, and, you know.
Plus, people like to talk about themselves, right?
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, I'll be with Rachel at an art show or something. People always compliment on her, whatever she's wearing, like her
your
dress
wife is
or whatever.
so
It's
cute.
like,
she's a cutie patootie.
But they're like, I love your dress. I love your earrings.
She's also very hot too. Your wife. As an example of her on her birthday, I was like, whoa. Anyway, moving on.
I feel like women compliment women a lot more, and it's pretty lax, and it's like it's not creepy or anything.
Yeah, that's true. Like, if you're a male, like, you really have to choose your words wisely, I suppose. Especially if you're complimenting a female, because you don't want to act like you're hitting on them. I look like a lesbian, so people think that I'm hitting on them regardless. But, you know.
The thing now, I guess, is like you can compliment them on their mask. It's like, oh, that's a cool mask. It's like, you know,
I like
whatever.
your glasses.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm more of I do talk to people more, but I am like available there. Like, I'm not on my phone. I pretty much am not on my phone at all, unless I'm like checking somebody out. And I mean, if I'm posting to Instagram or something, I'll try to do that during a slow time when I'm sneaking it and getting it on there, and then putting my phone down and not like constantly looking at it. Because I feel like approaching a booth and somebody's looking down at a phone, it just seems like they're not involved or whatever, they're not attentive. Especially if you're just sitting down and looking down at a phone, or like completely zoned into whatever you're doing and looking at, when you can't just glance up and it feels like they're like interrupting you.
Yeah.
So I'll usually kind of let them pick stuff up, and I might kind of look at their face to see if they're confused, or kind of like, oh, that's interesting, or they're looking at mugs and they're kind of looking around, and I'm like, oh, I've got a mug rack right here that you can pick from. There's a lot of different styles on there, and I'll kind of point them around. But
I like to have an item too that you can talk about that's like really interesting to you personally. So like for me, it was my wine glasses. They'd pick up a wine glass and be like, yeah, those are wine glasses. They are thicker at the base. They have a thin rim, so it's like drinking out of glass. They don't tip over in grass. And like you can have this like spiel about this one item, and they're like, wow, that's so cool. Like, it's designed well,
Yeah.
So like really invest in at least one or two items that you can talk about, I can't talk about a mug.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
I cannot talk about a mug. I'm like, oh yeah, it's a fucking mug. Like, who cares? Like, but I can get really super stoked about those wine glasses, or like a certain glaze. Like, they'll pick it up and I'll be like, dude, isn't that glaze fucking rad? Like, bragging about yourself in a way that's like, I was so surprised when that came out of the kiln and that glaze. It's so cool. Like, validating them picking it up,
Yeah, that's a great idea to do that for sure. I probably have 3 to 4 spiels.
Yeah.
Like the one last year was the shot glasses in the air plants, because that like draws them in, right? And they're like, oh my gosh, those are so cute. And then they're flipping through them, and I'm like, yeah, you could flip through the shot glasses and like pair them however you want. Pick your plant, pick your pot. And I was like, yeah, these kind of started out with, I make 300 of these, and COVID hit. And I had all these in stock, and they don't really sell that well online, just as shot glasses. So I was like, what's a way that I could spice them up? So I bought a bunch of air plants wholesale, and I, sold them together as a pair. And then I bring them to shows, and you can kind of go through and pick what you want at a show, which is really nice. So like that's a good little spiel of saying like, hey, I had to adjust with COVID, as well as hey, this is a fun thing that I kind of stumbled upon as a way to get rid of stock that I had a lot of. And then this, similar with the spoon rests, like they're looking and they're like, what am I going to use this for? And you got ideas, like a list of 4 to 5 things that you could use it for.
Yeah, like, so let's see, my 3 hot ticket items were wine glasses, pinch pots, and garden stakes. And pinch pots are super easy to sell because they're like, what's a pinch pot? And you say, oh, it's like a pinch of this, a pinch of that. You can put your salt or whatever, or I especially love the people that know ceramics and they walk past and they go, that's not a pinch pot. Oh my God. And they're like super snotty about it. And they're like, that's not a pinch pot. And like, clearly it is. It's just not your pinch pot. And then like the garden stakes had really funny sayings on them, and you make sure those are like super visible. And then they can like rummage through them, like please don't die. Or, plant. Or,
I wet my plants.
Or, damn it. I think one of them said damn it something, but yeah. Things that people can laugh at are really good. Little signs.
Yeah. What do you do if there's... Sometimes it's interesting with Rachel being back there too. Usually I try not to talk directly with her a lot when there's customers and stuff, just because I don't want to seem I'm disengaged. Usually she'll just be sitting there reading anyways, but I try to stay as attentive as I can. Like if your spouse or somebody else is there with you, or your significant other that's helping you at the booth, I try not to just be talking with them a lot, but that way you're accessible and you're attentive to what they need or what they're looking at. Because, like, you're only there for 6 hours.
Yeah.
I mean...
I don't have a spouse. I have a cat, so...
And you're not going to bring your cat with you. I mean, the cat might be a nice little attention grabber. I feel like Lloyd would really sell a bunch of pots. Yeah. Just have a big cat tree you put in the,
and he just chills
booth,
out.
And he can just sit and hang out in the sun.
That'd be great.
Have a dog bowl out there. That brings some people toward the tent,
especially if it's really hot. I put 2 dog bowls in my booth. Especially, on both corners. Sometimes in Leavenworth, if there's not enough vendors, you can set up sideways. And so it's a 20 by 10 booth, and it's fucking great. And that
20 by 10? What do you mean? You're sticking straight out into the street instead of
it's next
horizontally
to a gazebo,
along
like on
the
a
sidewalk kind of thing?
Park. But no, it's like, so you know how our booths are 10, so they're long, right? So they're 3 feet between each booth, and then they're 10 feet, like your entrance is the 10 feet, and then it goes 20 feet back. Okay?
Oh, I thought it was 20 feet wide.
No, but sometimes when there's not enough people, it does go 20 feet wide, which is like the best.
Oh.
No. So you enter, it's like a store.
Oh, so you really don't get that much real estate when people are walking by. You get the 10 feet. But, I mean, the sides are open, I assume,
but it has to be really inviting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, that changes my perspective of how your tent's laid out a little bit then, because I thought it was the other way around. Because all the double booths that I've seen are width-wise, like it's the size of 2 booths sitting next to each other.
Yeah, they that would be at like a really nice art fair. This is not that. This is not that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it really matters who you're next to, because if you're next to the metal guy or the photographers, you're fucking screwed. Because they have really fancy, cool things that people look right through your booth. And they're like, wow, that picture is so great, while they're standing in your booth looking through your shelves.
Yeah. That's where you almost need the sidewalls there to create a barrier.
Oh, I've definitely dropped some sidewalls. It has happened. Yeah. Do we have anything else to talk about?
I don't think so. I'm surprised it's got to 2 hours. I think we had about 20 minutes on the end there. That's pretty high level of the selling stuff, but it also differs how much interaction I'm doing depending on the show too.
Yeah.
Some shows are pretty self-served, and like people are pretty disengaged and they just want to kind of shop. And then other ones they're more engaged. It's like an art show or an art festival, and like they're more interested, so they're going to ask more questions about your process and how you make it and stuff like that. So, and a lot of people, like, they don't even know you hand make it. If you're in a show with a bunch of other like different mediums that are not like art heavy, they might be like, "Oh, do you make all
That's
this?"
That's my favorite. Do you make these? No, I just fucking sit here for 10 hours and listen to you guys ask me these stupid questions.
I have never said that and will never say that to anybody.
I've never said that either, but it's definitely gone through my brain.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, some people just can't fathom that you make something from scratch like that.
Yeah, that's true.
Or it could just be an entry conversation that they don't know what to say, and they're like, "Oh, these are really cool. Do you make them?"
Right.
I don't hold people too much to be like, "Yeah, fucking make them."
Fucking make them, yeah. Ugh, the snotty remarks. Have you had anybody... Oh, this is a good ending. Have you had anybody break anything in your booth, and how did you handle it?
Yeah. Normally I'm just like, "Oh, whatever. We'll just throw it away. Don't worry about it." And then they'll freak out and they'll be like, "Oh." Or like they're holding something and it like falls over, or something falls over on the table and it like almost knocks something. And they're like, and they're like trying to catch it. I'm like, "Don't worry about it. Like, I break 2 to 3 things when I pack up every now and then." So I usually say, "Really, you're more concerned about it than I will be."
That's a
so
good response.
Like, don't worry about it.
I've had a bunch of people break things on accident, and I've had somebody break something and walk away fully knowing that they broke it. And I chased them down.
Hey!
I was like, "Hey!
You broke this!"
Yeah, that one time, this lady, like, knocked it off with her backpack or something, looked at it, and then walked away, and I saw her do it, and
Did it fall on the ground?
Yeah, it went on the ground.
And it just broke?
And I ran out of my booth, and I was like, "Hey! You just knocked off my piece, and you didn't even say sorry." I made her feel really bad.
Did she say anything?
I didn't do that. I'm like, "Yeah, you fucking did." I didn't say fucking. I was like...
Yeah, everybody can hear the sound of crashing ceramics on the ground. That's usually when all the neighboring booths look right at your booth and they're like, "Oh shit,
and I was like,
what
"Yeah,
happened?"
you did." Oh, I would break a piece every single week. I'm like, "Yeah, you did." And she's like, "Well," I was like, "No, it's fine. I just want you to know that was really dumb, like really not nice, and you continue on with your freaking day." I was so rude. But most of the time when people break it, I'm like, "It's fine. It's just pottery."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we grow unattached to things the more that we make, and kind of got to learn to just be like, whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
And then you get to the point where you keep stuff on shelves and you keep it in your studio and you're like, "Yeah, I need to just break that and just get rid of that, get that out of my life."
Yep.
Usually it's like a piece that had a slight issue and you're like, "I'll sell that as a second."
It'll be fine.
Sometimes you're just like, I should just smash that and throw it away.
Yeah.
It'll be better.
Yep.
All right. I think that's all we got for you.
That's it.
All right. Well, we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to our podcast. We really appreciate it, and we're having so much fun. If you want to follow us individually on Instagram, you totally can. Ryan's Instagram handle is @RDCeramics, and mine is 5 Lines Pottery. That's the number 5. We would love to hear from you, and don't forget to write us a review on our podcast. We read every single one of them, and we totally appreciate them. They help us out an awful lot, and they also put smiles on our faces. I hope you guys continue to listen, and we love you. Thanks. Bye.